Hola amigos, bienvenidos .NET API review. We have a red issue, which I just talked about how we're not going to talk about because it only got marked 10 minutes before the meeting started. And otherwise, unlike last week when we had a peaceful half screen, now I've got a scroll bar back. But, 11 still fits on the screen. Also, can you believe that the year is half over? I can't. Although, I'm kind of ready for Christmas. So, not because I want it to be cold, because Christmas sounds fun. All right. Cool. Well, with that awkward intro, first up is .NET Runtime 127852 add configuration references.
Yeah, so thank you. So this feature is to allow users to refer one configuration key from another. So currently we have overriding, we have shadowing and runtime changes in configuration, but we can't say that basically one thing is the same as the other. So users have to copy the same configuration parts into multiple places in their configuration, and then they have to keep them in sync on their own. Moreover, the libraries that would be able to provide like some uh, meaningful or useful features reusing configuration sections now can't, because they would have to really explain users how it works and what needs to be done. So that's why we are proposing this API. But as you see in the API itself, you could go a bit up. The API itself isn't really about referencing itself, it's about allowing references. And this is related to the biggest challenge in this, because moving or allowing references moves the control from the application authors to the configuration authors. Mostly it's the same team, same group of persons, but if anyone can tamper with part of configuration, and for example environment variables are configuration as well, they can't do much. But if they would be able to refer any other key by a key they add, they would maybe add a key that is locked somewhere and refer a key that that holds a secret, and the secret then would be printed out in a lock or something. So the public API for this feature is really about the security boundary, about setting policies for it. It has one extension method, allow references, which is on iConfiguration Builder, as you see. And this method actually adds a configuration source and provider, which is responsible for managing the references, and it configures it. And the configuration really has two methods. One is to allow. You say that a key is allowed to reference other keys, one or more. That's why the additional targets. And deny. The deny is there because we allow wildcards. So if you want to have a broad allow, because in general you don't have any secrets there except of that one and that one, you will simply add them to the deny list, and they won't be allowed for reference by the key. This is intentionally in the code, because the configuration as such is something like an application UI for its authors. And this shapes the UI and gives it the boundary, so the UI can't be misused the way the authors don't want. And there is another part, but we don't need this part explicitly for the version 1. This is something that that we expect that will be requested, so we can first discuss the first part.
Since you have an allow and deny, which means you have an access model, what is the default access for anything?
Yeah, the default is that nothing is accessible. If you allow no rules, nothing will be allowed to reference anything. So, but this is only about references. The value, like non-reference value, the real value will always win. So.
Right. Like it would be insecure at this point to like automatically allow references, like because people might have expectations that modifying one section won't modify the other, or won't give you access to another. But yeah, it's interesting. So if I call the main allow references method with the configure callback, would that? All right. So like if I don't call anything in that configure callback, if I have like an empty callback, it's still denial.
Yeah, then you will get an exception from first reference going anything that it's not that's forbidden basically for accessing it. But if you
It
won't have
wouldn't
any
be an exception,
references,
right? You would just read it verbatim as like ref open parentheses, whatever.
yeah. But if you won't have any references, well, you will basically see nothing. Yeah.
Right. It would. Yeah. I mean, if you're not using it, it won't matter.
Right, but to scroll down here, if nothing calls the callback when you read azure.storage.credential, you just literally get the text ref open paren, etc.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it.
If no one calls allow, saying that this is allowed, or that this is allowed to be referenced,
yeah,
then when you read configuration.azure.storage.credential, you get these letters.
no, you get an exception that you are accessing something you are forbidden.
Right, so there you go, Stefan. It throws.
Yep.
Interesting. So if I don't call allow references, I get it verbatim. But if I do call it and it's not allowed, then you get an exception. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, if you don't call allow references, you basically don't turn this feature on at all. So
makes sense. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks for the clarification.
But if you think it would make more sense to just pass verbatim when we get outside of the boundaries and just log that the target was out of bound and that's why we passed verbatim, I guess it's possible as well. But I think this is more explicit actually.
One thing I'm worried about, like with config, especially being like arbitrary data, is like, are people gonna know to like escape this when they're not trying to do a reference? Levi, I see you have your hand up. I wonder if you're wondering similar things.
Actually, I just wanted to draw attention to something I dropped in chat. I know people have been making like security not allowed, whatever arguments for the past few minutes. That's not applicable here. Just so everyone's on the same page, we're talking solely about correctness. You don't have to worry about an application attacking themselves.
I mean, as you know, security with libraries is all about like setting up expectations and so forth. I don't think it's crazy today without references to be like, hey, I'm gonna put a user provided string in this configuration value, and I don't expect it to like read another arbitrary part of config.
Just saying, we document explicitly that that is not a valid use case for the system.
I was gonna
that you
assume the
can't
whole
put
app
any
has
user-controlled data in config.
access to read everything.
We assume configuration is entirely under application control. We publish.
I guess it
that
depends on what you
expectation.
mean as a user, right? Like, what if the
Yeah.
user is like a developer who, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all about having
Don't
reasonable
break into jail.
expectations.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep people from breaking into jail and complicating the system.
It's fair.
Well, I mean,
Oh.
I'm curious about I hear the motivation about not duplicating keys, but talk about breaking into jail. This adds a lot of complexity to configuration. I assume this all works with Configuration Manager. I saw that one of the alternative designs was making this a binding only thing, which
Yeah.
I don't love either, to be honest.
If
But
it's not a security surface, we can make it like default with a simple escaping. But I think the way we expressed references is not likely to collide with anything.
Okay, Levi, so you are saying there is no any security angle in this feature. Is this
just
correct?
usability. Yeah.
I'm saying unless you've made an explicit security promise to customers in the past, the config can contain arbitrary untrusted data. No expectation of security against hostile input exists. Therefore, you're free to make whatever implementation changes you want. And we document all of this. Like
Yeah,
what I'm saying should not be surprising. What I'm saying is documented.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just asking because like we had offline discussion with Yaroslav about that, about like, we introducing this APIs mostly because of the security angle. Because like, there is other option is you can enable or disable this feature through the configuration itself. I mean, like, you can have something in the configuration telling like, enable this reference or disable this reference inside the configuration, not API. So it will be easier for people to control that without writing code at all.
But yeah, to Levi's point, why, if there's no conflicts, like if it's all developer controlled and we're not worried about anyone accidentally conflicting, like why have the programmatic allow deny at all? Just all right, no one's going to conflict, just do it.
Yeah.
Where I was about to go.
Don't complicate things unnecessarily.
Okay, just to make sure about there is small angle for app compat. I mean, because we are going to use some syntax inside the configuration itself, which is like $ref or ref of
Sure, but
or something.
That's only the first method. It's not anything to do with an allow and deny list.
No, yeah.
I would say I would lean towards doing it or not doing it, and not creating two levels of API here.
It's not about allow or deny. Yeah, I agree with that. It's about to turn on or off the whole feature for all references.
You could have an app context switch too, if we're worried about.
No, I mean app context have its own problems also, but I would say about we can control this inside the configuration itself to turn on or off the feature on this configuration, right? Without any APIs, I mean.
I think we need, at the very least, a way to escape it. Like there has to be a way to represent in config, a string literal that starts with ref open parenthesis.
Yeah.
There is a way to escape it. It's right in the issue. So one thing we may consider is then to have a kill switch. Basically, I don't want this feature at all for the service owners if they, for example, have a lot of these refs and they don't want to escape them. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'd be tempted to make this opt-in but global.
Right, which would just be the
because I'm not sure how many people will use it. But yeah, I don't know if we need a super specific section-based ACLs or whatever, especially given what Levi just said.
It would be allow references, configuration builder, close paren. no callback because once we kill, allow, and deny, there's nothing in the builder. So
Yeah. There is a possible extension, but we can make an overload for the allow references in future.
And will this work? So here's one thing where it gets weird, right? If we add this allow references extension method to iConfiguration builder, like, have we verified this works with configuration manager? Because that's gonna, like, that's an iConfiguration and iConfiguration builder simultaneously. So that means as soon as you call allow references, like, you got to reload everything.
Yeah, I have a working
think it's fine.
prototype. I have
Okay.
a working prototype. The tests are passing for both. So
Okay.
Yeah, just to make sure that we are clear. I mean, like, I prefer this feature will be turned on by default because, like, I'm not expecting like 0.0001% of people will be broken or that. So I would say, like, enable this by default is the right thing. And we will just need to give them a way if somebody like broken for some reason to turn it off. And so the other way about like, opt out, not opt in.
Another thing to consider about Web Application Builder, right, is some things read configuration before the app developer has an opportunity to call allow references or disallow references. Like, whichever way we make the default, there will be a moment before user code is called where we're reading config, where you don't have the opportunity to change the default yet on iConfiguration Builder, which leads me back to maybe the app context switch.
Yeah, no, this is pretty much baked into the way the providers are prepared. So there is no window between.
There is a window, right? Because the point is when I new up, or I call web application builder.create, like, I'm not going to be able to call allow references while it's bootstrapping, and it reads config during that bootstrapping. Like, it's unavoidable, like, due to the way web application builder works. Like, it needs to read config before it gives the user an iConfiguration builder.
I'm not sure I follow because this is a code, yeah. So
this
as
is
it
how web
bootstrap-
application builder works. It
Oh yeah,
reads
sorry. You
config
mean
through
the web application
manager
builder?
before. Yeah.
Yeah, we can propagate the option there.
Okay, so
but the point is, yeah, there's like, yeah, we'd have to maybe add it to like host application builder.create. Like, maybe we need to extend the API proposal to add a flag there to like host application builder creation options, or we would need like an app context switch.
Okay, so if we make it like by default is on and with a config switch, this will address everything, right?
Yeah, if we're happy with the config switch, I think so.
Yeah, the config switch will be always there. Yeah, when the feature first start thinking about referencing anything, it can check it.
there is at least one voice from chat requesting not on by default. You guys can hammer that out.
Why? Yeah, why?
Frederick, do you have a why other than just a gut feeling and a visceral reaction? We have our
because like
broadcast
we
delay and his typing
have
delay, so
we have done our research. I mean, like, we looked at like most of the configuration files exist today, and we didn't find like, this will break anybody today. At least what we saw.
On the flip side, I imagine that like 99% of apps aren't going to use references in config.
So regarding
having this like extra,
regarding risk of on by default, if somebody happens to have a value that says ref open paren and then some letters and then close paren, and that doesn't point to a configuration section, does that throw or does that give back verbatim text?
Well, currently it throws. If we are fine with returning verbatim text, it's possible as well. So far, the parties that were involved preferred throwing or on any like unexpected situation. So if we change it, it's possible, definitely.
Whatever we do, I don't think it should be dependent on like whether the target exists. It should just be based on how it's configured.
Well, I mean, that's what happens if you're referencing a thing that doesn't exist. Is it the empty string? Is it an exception, or is it the verbatim text of the reference? All three of which would make sense.
I think if you opted into enabling references, it should throw.
If they're on by default, you didn't know you opted into enabling references.
Sure. Okay. If you are have been opted,
Yeah,
some way or another.
If on has been opted.
Enabling references.
I
Whether it's
understand.
opted or out.
Yeah, I understand the reasons for the throwing. On the other side, returning verbatim is more resilient because most likely, if it's a random collision, you don't have a key that would have precisely the syntax that we expect, right? So nothing would seemingly happen. For them, expect that we might log some warning or something.
I think you need an explicit fallback, which means you probably need to change the syntax a little, or throw. Like, I don't think you can implicitly fall back to either the verbatim text or string. Like, if the person is trying to use a reference and hasn't explicitly say they want a fallback behavior, that's a debugging minefield.
Yeah, I agree
much
with Stefan there.
Yeah, I think if you're pursuing on by default, I think that throwing is the best option. It tells someone something has changed here.
To mention also about the binder today have like option, I don't remember what its name, like throw an error or something. So by default, binders is swallowing the exceptions for wrong configurations. And if you enable this option, you will start seeing these exceptions. So by default, if nobody enabled this option, I mean, like, they will not get the exception anyway. But
I mean, there is a difference between binding and like reading a key from configuration.
So far it sounds like we're at
not exactly
no API.
Okay.
Unless I've missed something, because if we're getting rid of allow and deny, then we lose this first chunk. And if we're on by default, we don't need the second chunk. But now we can project to the future and say we do want something so that you can have a custom parser or something.
Yes.
And so thinking ahead to when you want to do this, how is registering a custom parser going to work with Stefan's web application builder? I've already read config and acted on it scenario.
Well, basically, this would be tricky because you have no way to add your configuration sources into the web host, right?
Not
Stefan?
before you read it, correct. Like, there's some default configuration sources that we read during bootstrapping.
Okay.
Of course, we can look at adding things to web application options, which would be your way to do stuff before we create the web application builder. But that would require ASP.NET Core changes. I actually looked at host application builder options, and we do take a nullable configuration manager as an option. So the workaround for host application builder is that, like, you new up the configuration manager yourself, load in the sources, or whatever, and then pass it in.
But we don't want all services to use this option just to turn the feature on and maybe have a parser, right? So
I mean, I don't know how many people are going to supply this parser. I would prefer not to add like a configuration parser thing directly to web application options, but maybe we could do something similar to host application options where we let you pass in like a pre-constructed configuration manager. I could discuss that with you after this meeting. What we
Okay.
can do in ASP.core to React.
And quote, my reaction to opt-in is more gut feeling. It feels wrong that this suddenly behaves more smart than the stupid, no surprise behavior we have today. I think stupid he was using as in a positive way.
Me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree.
It came out of my
with
mouth as a
that.
negative. I was just saying it.
Yeah.
I meant to say
Yeah,
it in a
no,
positive
keep
way.
it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's keep it positively stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we are fine with just the general on-off and the whole discussion is about preferring opt-in or opt-out, I'm for opt-in personally. I understand even opt-out. I know that Tarek at least is for opt-out, and two other people that aren't in this meeting by coincidence. So
Yeah, my whole point is like moving forward, I'm expecting many people is going to use this reference feature. And
Yeah.
having it like top to end every time you want to use it, it's too much.
Yeah, it's a difference in perspective. Like, I agree that if most apps end up using this, like if we were to put this in our template or whatever, like our project
Yeah.
templates,
Right.
I might feel different. And not want the, explicit allow references. If this is just like every app's gonna do it
But-
now.
But still, that's definitely a plan. If we will go with opt-in, we will add it to templates because the opt-in would be just a defense from colliding with something already existing, right? So, sorry.
We got rid of templates, but
Oh no, we still have them. Now the idea is the AI calls .NET. I feel like we got back and forth
fair
on
enough.
that, but yeah.
I thought the idea was it didn't need the templates. Well, yeah. So on the one hand, I want to say this isn't the right forum for deciding opt-in or opt-out, but it actually is, because if we're saying it's opt-in, then we want an API called something like allow references, and if it's opt-out, app context, we have no API, and if it's right, so there is a little bit of deciding that. So just for I can come up with no other way, so I'll just say shits and giggles. Let's assume that it's on by default, but now we want to upgrade it to add the configuration reference builder.parser. What do you call the API that lets you customize it? If you can't come up with a name, then maybe we just say it's opt-in and we call it allow references. But like,
I mean, you could call it disallow references.
calling disallow references to pass in a this is the parser I want you to use feels really weird.
I'm happy with allow references
Oh,
personally.
it could be different things. You're happy with allow references, you said,
Yes.
because you want it to be opt-in. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and Yaroslav, why do you not want to include the bottom three classes in the V1?
They are part of the parser. They are just there to express how the parser should work, and I expect this will come as a request, but we can start with the minimal API and collect some experience, and maybe we will end up with different API. So this is more an extension.
Fair enough. And
I'm just worried about like in the future if somebody like got configuration file, I mean, and allow references is not enabled. I mean, and we are saying that we throwing, so this require code change to allow.
Better that it
I mean,
throws
to
in that scenario than like silently accepts it, probably.
I'm
The thing
not
is, like, if LL
I'm
won't
talking about
work, right?
like
If you have
I'm talking about like forcing people to go and modify the code to allow that, which is I'm seeing like it's too much.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
given that they use a new configuration feature, then you would also need to add new code, which I'm not saying.
Why?
Yeah,
This
I'm
is
not
my
saying that that's right, but it's definitely not breaking.
Yeah, it's not breaking.
Can we have allow references and a Boolean parameter?
You have to choose the default anyway.
Allow
So
references
what would be
bold. Did I actually mean
Like if
allow?
you don't call it.
Okay. Anyway, I stand by opting in,
Yeah.
but I can live with both.
Chat gave a suggestion for if it's opt in and we want API to opt out, then it could, look something like that. Just food for thought. But
So is this configuration reference part? This is not part of the proposal, right? It's like a possible extension. You said the last three. Okay.
Oh yes.
Are out. But we need it, right? For the action. Like that's literally the whole thing. Like all three parts of it are part of this action.
right,
And like configuration expansion is not defined anywhere that I can see. But
right. So it's if we say it's on by default and the only opt out is app context, and we've removed the access model, then the status would be approved with no API. So
got it. So we're not doing the parser right now. And we're not doing the action callback. Yeah, I mean,
I will say chat has expressed interest in the parser, but
Is interested. Yeah, I expect that this request will come. We will have our
I hate it.
default, which is in the issue description. But as a service owner, and I was service owner, I would prefer to be able to have my own. So
what would you do with the parser? Like just like it still has to be the same syntax, right? Because it only gets activated for like the ref paren whatever. It would have to be something that you're not. It's like not a custom provider. It's just like a custom redirector. So instead of going directly to where the ref goes, you can go somewhere else.
well, just this is one size fits all, yeah. And the experience is that one size doesn't fit all usually.
I mean, I would rather people write custom providers or something, but maybe this is hitting some use case that I don't realize.
the only thing I can see with the API that's here, which if we're not going to talk about this, we could close the issue and move on. But sorry, we can wrap up the issue and move on. But with the current shape, the only thing that I could see is that you've handled. You changed where some configuration sections are, so you're looking at it wanted to load X, and you know that that's now called Y.
Fix your config. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I could see it coming later, but I definitely, agree with putting it off. I do see the utility, right? I guess like it's common in YAML and stuff, right, to have references sometimes. I don't know.
And it also,
I think that
as chat
think
points out,
actually-
lets you not expand the reference and give back the verbatim text. So.
Actually, one way how users can benefit from it is that they can have their own references syntax, not just reference and format. They can have something else, like reading something from somewhere if a value is was expected or something like that.
Not with the shape you have on
as long
screen.
as it's inside the parens, you could add like additional metadata, I suppose, and then read that in your thing.
But the ref open paren close paren, you've clearly already parsed because you've broken this down into a key and value, so you've controlled the whole reference syntax. But
yeah.
All right, so if these are not being discussed today, and we've eliminated that, that means that there's no func to give in the callback. That would be allow references, just an extension method with no other arguments. But if it's on by default, then we don't need allow references. So it sounds like we're saying this feature should go ahead with no API.
Okay, so we go with opt out.
Yeah.
Or we go with just default.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Opt out with an app
we did say
context
opt in, so that would be allow references with no second argument.
Yeah. So the allow references will be the whole API for the feature, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right. If it's opt-in, then we have to give you the opt-in. Yeah. Okay.
Man, I'm tempted. Like I started out team opt-in, but like
We've never approved an API as blank. Like, I'm kind of intrigued.
I mean, we could approve the name of the app context switch or whatever if we wanted to go that way. I'm just trying to think how it would work with web application builder.configuration opt-in. Like, the main way to do it would be to call allow references, like the most obvious way to do it right after you get the builder. So do like builder.configuration.allow references. And that would work for most things. Just not like the only things that it basically wouldn't work for are like modifying your current working directory kind of thing. Just some things that need to be bootstrapped. But I wonder if it was like opt out, like and most people won't change it, you would assume. It's nice not to change config. You know what I mean? Like, I hate changing the configuration manager from like loading config originally without references and then having to reload everything with references if everyone's going to end up doing it.
Can we conclude it that if we will continue with the discussion with Stephen, and if we will end with opt-in, we will use the allow references, and if we end up with opt-out or default, we will simply have no API?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fine with me. Sorry for putting like a wrench in that, but happy to talk about how we integrate it with host application builder / web application builder.
Okay. And potential opt-out would be disallow references or deny references or allow references false.
Or just
Disable
app context,
references.
Sorry?
Or just app context, or
Yeah, or an app context switch. But yeah, maybe disable references. I don't know.
Okay.
One thing I like about app context switch is that cleanly answers like what we do for web application builder initialization. It's just like set it before it becomes a problem, and then it doesn't change. It is what it is. But then it's harder per builder, but I doubt anyone would care.
all right. We remove the.
What's the way to escape it, by the way? If I do want to start a thing with ref,
It's backslash.
just backslash at the very beginning of the string before,
Yes.
not like carriage return.
Yeah, in the very start.
Or it'd be like // in a string literal, so you just see a
Yeah.
regular
I was gonna
backslash.
give
Yeah,
you
it
right
won't be
/ref.
carriage
That's
return,
carriage
yeah.
return.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
You got to escape your escaping, and then escape your escaping of your escaping, etc. It's turtles all the way down.
Yeah, that's not going to confuse anyone. All right. Hopefully, no one really needs to escape these things.
Yeah. All right. We removed the access model. The customization isn't something they want in V1, so we're not talking about it. Therefore, there's no reason for the callback, so we removed it, and it's possible that even this one approved method will not get added if you change to app context opt-out.
Yeah, good job.
Are we happy?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah. By the way, for the API notes have historically gone to .NET API reviews, but we've changed some access models and the bot can't post things. So I have to open a PR on its behalf, and then I can't approve my own PR. So anyone else who's a member of XDC, if you can approve the pull requests that are popping up in API reviews, that'd be great. That is all. I mean, I guess I could JIT elevate myself, but that just seems unnecessary. All right. Moving on. Make zip archive entry zip version made by platform byte public. 124755.
Yep. Hello. So I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
I think this is pretty much straightforward. So I want to create a public property to get access to an internal field. It's this version made by platform. Byte, it exists already internally. It basically tells us on which platform the entry was created. And the reason I want to have access to it as a public property is we noticed that there are some tools that don't take into account like file permissions when you create a zip entry. And when we try to extract these entries using our library, it sometimes results in weird file permissions because we don't actually check on which platform the file was created on. And yeah, I think this is like the main reasoning behind this. There are a total of like 20 values in the specs. Previously, we were only using like Windows and Unix, but I decided to add all of them since it will now be public.
Is there a public maintained registry that we can compare these to?
What do you mean?
Well, like I assume that IANA doesn't register this, but where can we look and see that 5 is Atari Street?
Oh, yeah, there's a link to the specs down below. Oh, sorry, it's in the comment section. It's in my last comment. And you can look for a version made by and I think one more. Yeah, this one.
So is the idea here, the reason the name sounds so weird, zip version made by platform, is that they're abusing the version field in the file format to indicate the platform? Like, is that it? Or is it just like, could it just be made by platform?
Yeah,
Like, why is it
I
a
think,
version?
yeah, it's like there are 2 bytes, and the first one is used to actually specify the zip version, and then the second one for the host platform. Yeah, I do agree that zip version made by sounds a bit weird. So I think I'm fine with keeping it made by platform only. But I just kept it zip version made by like because that's how it was called in the specs, and that's how it was called already, like by us.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hate the name of the enum proposed.
Okay.
So it's literally called the version made by, or version made by field by the spec, it seems.
Yes.
Never mind then. I mean, if they call it version made by, who am I to say they're wrong?
All right. Whoever at Mozilla added that feature, there you go. Someone uses it. Amiga Street. Oh, Atari Street. Sorry. All right. Chat has asked, would this mean these enum values should be accompanied by a does platform respect permissions API in order to make it someone able to react to the value? So, is adding the enum sufficient for what you're hoping to do, or is there API that should accompany it?
I think adding the enum is sufficient. Like currently, it would help us. Like there would be like a follow-up for this. So when we are extracting an entry, we don't actually check the file permissions from the entry. So we can end up with field permissions, but once we would have this public enum, we would be able to do that. So we would integrate that already, so there shouldn't be any issues, nor the need for some other API.
Fair enough. But shouldn't some record somewhere be exposing this?
There's a code comment there.
Your API was broken with words. All right, but hey, it fits on the screen. What's zip archive entry look like?
I have a random question. Would you ever need to support a setter on zip archive entry, or do we always just hard code Windows or Unix regardless of platform?
Like when we create, we only assign Windows or Unix. So a setter doesn't make sense because it's kind of hard coded.
Is that what people want? Like presumably people want to be able to read this value because they want to make a decision based on it. Like, does that mean that we also need to allow people to set the values?
I don't think so. Like it gets automatically set when you create the entry based on where you created. Yeah, I mean, so far we only support Windows and Unix, but realistically, no one's complained about it. And I don't know how popular any of the other platforms are.
Well, we released this library as a net standard library, which in theory could run on any compliant runtime, even platforms that we don't understand.
Okay. I would still say it shouldn't be necessary because it might make people confused, or we might run into trouble because of that.
I assume we use Unix for any non-Windows platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Which is like not far from the truth, right?
Right. I just wanted us to at least have the conversation to say like, hey, we thought about it and we decided this wasn't necessary. And ideally that would be documented somewhere in the API proposal issue itself, that we had that conversation and deemed it unnecessary. And here's why it's unnecessary.
So I'm just still trying to figure out how to name this enum. I mean,
another thing that's like kind of weird is like the field, right, is 2 bytes, and like the top byte is like the made by field and the bottom byte is like the actual version, which I don't think we expose either.
No.
So interesting that we're exposing the made by thing, but not the lower byte part. Do you know like why this in particular was needed and not the actual like zip version?
Yeah. So we need so inside the local header, there's like a field that specifies whether specifies the file attributes for a Windows entry or the file permissions for a Unix entry. But when we extract a file, we actually don't have access to the version made by field because it's in a different assembly. So making it public would solve that. That's why we only need this one and not the version itself, the version.
Yeah, I was like wondering, like from an API perspective, maybe combining them to be like just more similar to the underlying file format would make it more clear.
Ish, but like the way that like they're like, oh, it's a 2 byte field. This byte means this thing, and this other byte means this other thing. So really, it's 2 1 byte fields that they had just previously called a short in the spec.
Yeah, but then we put version in the name. So if we're really trying to abstract it, from the file format, then what is version doing in there?
Right.
Other than it's in the spec, and that's how they implemented it.
Yeah, like I would just maybe call it zip made by. Like,
I'm
it's
fine
still
with
a,
it. Like, I don't
I
think
still don't
people
like
are
the
going to be
name, but
confused. Yeah, it's not like it conflates with anything else that I'm aware of.
yeah, I
Not in
mean, I
that case,
guess
but
the extremely. So again, Stefan, be happy. The extremely wordy name is bothering me, but it is a thing that basically no one's ever going to use. So,
Yeah.
So maybe it's fine.
I mean, the spec literally calls it the zip host platform.
Does it?
I don't see the word host here. Oh,
It's
the host system.
442 host system.
Yeah. Well, up here they call it version made by, and then here it says
Yeah.
host system.
Yeah.
And then it's the host system for which they're compatible. So great. You said they're compatible with VFAT, not to be confused with VFAT. Right? Because, like, yeah. So cool. Now do with that what you will. All right. So yeah, now we have the problem of naming these things.
I would go with either made by or made by platform, or as proposed version made by platform. I don't think it's that important. I think made by is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, just getting rid of platform because that's not a word from the spec.
Yeah, okay, I'm also fine with zip made by or just made by.
Yeah, it's from the spec. Version made by.
Yeah, version made by.
Though the spec is describing both bytes in the field in that case, not just the one.
It is,
but
yeah. Well, that's kind of why I was leaning a little bit toward host, just because like you are exposing operating system information as opposed to a version field. But yeah. Another thing you could do is you could just avoid the enum entirely and just expose the 2-byte field.
And then
And
it
say,
actually
look,
would be make sense to call it version made by.
yeah, and just say like, look, we're exposing the raw data from the zip. If you want to know how to interpret this, here's a link to the spec. Have fun.
On the one hand, that feels less than perfectly helpful. On the other hand, it means we don't have to debate the capitalization of BOS.
Love it.
Well, it also means that you have access to the other information that's encoded in the field.
Yeah. Also, like the enum is pretty worthless, right? Like we could almost keep it as just Windows Unix if we did ship it, right? Because that's all we really look for /use.
Yeah, and you would just tell people like, look, this enums as an enum can represent more than these two values. It's just these are the two that we've named. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was also having issue with, like, the internal one called it a byte because it is a byte, and then the public one got rid of the type restriction, which means now it can talk about completely invalid answers.
Right. But that's fine though. Like generally speaking, unless we're talking interop, and this isn't really an interop scenario, generally speaking, we try to keep enums as int.
Indeed.
Right.
It's a question of, do we think that this enum is sufficient for blitting to or from the raw records?
And it never was. Well, I guess it was for the first byte.
As byte it was, as long as you know which one the upper byte is.
Right. Yeah, as long as you can do that.
But I like Stefan's proposal though. If we do want to make an enum, let's just say if we do want to do that, just keep Windows and Unix. Then nuke everything else.
Yeah, we could always add them back later if people ask. I don't think they will because nothing has it.
Okay, so let's entertain just adding the 2-byte field version made by. Would we call that short, u short, int, potato?
I would
We'd have to
call it
admit to potato
ushort
type.
because that's what it is in the spec.
hmm
When you say call it, you just mean the type of the field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna
In-
call the property
I mean,
ushort.
you could.
And
Like, not version made by ushort, right? Yeah, if it's called version made by and it's a ushort, like that allows you to get all the information.
Yeah, aligns with the spec, and then it makes sense why version's in there.
Yeah. It is a bit weird, admittedly, because normally we do try to have enums for other stuff, but this really does seem like an edge case scenario.
Right, we don't expect most callers to use it. I mean, this is practically pubterminal, right? Like we kind of
Right.
it's because we want to use it across assembly boundaries, not because applications really are going to look at this much.
Right. And it kind of obviates the whole like, well, why isn't there a setter if there's a getter? Like, well, because we're not allowing you to set the platform anymore. We're just telling you what was already there. And we're not even exposing it as a friendly API. We're just giving you the raw bytes that were in the stream. So
and since it's exposed, you could, for your cross assembly information, know which of the 2 bytes is the upper byte, and
yeah.
then just ask if it's 3 or 0, or none of the above.
And I'm guessing it's on the archive entry because you might update the archive with another platform than what originally created it, just by adding new data. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, zip's a record concatenation
Yeah.
format.
So yeah, whoever reads the ushort is going to have to do an endianness check, right? Or no, you
The
can just shift.
loader, like the byte order is going to be indicated somewhere. I just don't know
Yeah.
if upper
Yeah.
byte means closer to 0 or that they say it's 2 bytes because it's little Indian and it's the second. Yeah.
I mean, we would probably just want to document that in the API documentation to say like we project this as machine endian or whatever it is. Like
Well, we would do it whatever the spec says
yeah.
to do. Like
Yeah.
Like
But
the,
I mean,
the
the
file
upper
length
bytes-
is going to be Indian.
Yeah.
Oh, it says right
Yeah.
here.
The way you get the upper byte's the same regardless. We'll just put it in
Right.
whatever the upper byte is. Yeah,
The-
for that
the-
platform.
Yeah, the file
Yeah.
format is little Indian, and then we would load that and we would represent it in
in
as a
machine
short
endian.
or as a U short.
Yeah.
Right.
So then
Whatever
works for
makes
me.
sense for the Indian.
So then
you
upper
won't need
byte
the
means
chat
you
in your code.
shift it right by 8 to read the value.
Yep.
Okay.
Works for me.
Good enough.
Perfect.
All right. So are we happy not exposing the enum and exposing the U short as version made by?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Hey, look, you avoided an enum.
Apparently, when you make this page skinny, the layout changes. All right. Words. I wonder why U short didn't turn brown. Weird. Kevin, you've got another bug. Yep. All bugs in GitHub belong to Kevin. All right. We happy?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Put down here. Does that close them both? Woohoo. No, it closed the grouping. Okay. All right. HTTP compression, request compression. This is a 5-digit number, runtime 469 or 44.
Yep. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so in this issue, in this proposed API, we are proposing to have this compressed content class where you will be, or users will be able to compress their contents inside the HTTP requests that they want to send. The opposite of this, the response decompression, is built into HTTP client, but the direction where you compress the content body that you are sending is not available yet. So we will be adding one compressed content class, which is wrapping a HTTP content, a subclass of HTTP content. And like I said, it will be compressing the inner contents of the request via streaming. And in here you see two constructors, one with the default compression level, and then one where you can simply specify explicitly the level that you want. And this follows the same pattern that we have in our compression streams available in .NET. There is also one public enum that I am proposing, which has the compression methods that we currently have available inside .NET. And as an alternative design, we considered having a handler that mirrors the decompression handler, but we decided only the compressed content class is the right primitive to ship first. So yeah, that's about it. I have a couple alternative designs. If you scroll a little bit more, maybe we can discuss the second one. We already made a decision, but I wanted to ask too. There's also this enum called decompression methods, plural, and it's a Flux enum, and it is designed for response decompression. And it has the values none and all. I thought about how I could use it, but it doesn't make sense in this case because for compression, you need exactly one and not multiple or all or none in this case. So we will be needing a new public enum called compression methods. And we decided to go with the values 1 to 4, 16 to map the exact values that we have inside the decompression methods enum, so that we have parity between them. So we thought about numbering them sequentially, but inside the team we went with this design. And also the compression algorithms offer or have other parameters that you can play with other than compression level, a leave open flag, and then the algorithm specific options. But in this case, we thought they were too advanced for this point, so we will be discussing them later if there is demand for it in the future. So yeah, to start with, 2 constructors and one enum that will be used inside those constructors.
So, question: why is having the same values important?
We thought maybe users might want to map between them. and make the transition. It will make the transition smoother. But that's the best answer that I have.
But one's a flag xenome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know this. I mean, how confusing or different it can be for this compression method. Yeah.
I don't know. There
I feel
seems to be
like
something unsatisfying with that answer.
I feel like the two answers are this is numbered 1 through 4. We can also debate 0 through 3. Or we just use the flag xenome, because either way you're going to throw if it's not one of these 4 values exactly.
Right.
So yes, it's a little weird that you would say compressed content of decompression methods dot Brotli, and if you said decompression methods dot Brotli or deflate, then it's going to yell at you and say you have to pick one. But it's fine. Like you're really expecting them to always pass a literal. So yeah, I would not make a new enum using flags numbers that isn't flags just to get rid of the all and none names.
Yeah, because you could very easily translate between one and the other by just shifting.
There was one idea that theoretically we might entertain the idea of making these flags in the future, because we might decide to introduce the compression handler that would.
You can't change a non-flags to flags.
You cannot.
Yeah.
Okay.
For one, because you'd have to put an S on the end of the name.
Come on.
No, so I mean, so taking
sorry, I was-
decompression methods means that you could move in the future from only accepting one to accepting a combination and having that make meaning, or having that have meaning. Make sense? There we go. Makes sense.
But there's no equivalent to the accept header for request, right? So I don't think there's ever going to be multiple options.
I mean, you
don't get to see the accept header when you make a request is probably the better way to put that.
Yeah. The only thing I can imagine is like that you would have a policy saying like, hey, I want to allow these very particular things on the outbound, and whichever one's chosen is just an implementation detail. I don't really care which one's chosen. But at that point, like you may just have used the decompression method enum, because that's literally the same thing. Yeah. Like I don't care which one's chosen as long as it's one of these.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be just use decompression methods and start off by saying you only accept it if exactly one bit is set.
So we will throw for
Argument
some
exception.
values of the compression methods.
I mean, no matter what,
well, you have to throw anyway.
Yeah,
yeah.
You have to throw if somebody passes you
Yeah.
the value 512, like same exception.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't get away with not throwing, unfortunately. So you're not adding a check, you're just changing what the check is.
And changing the text to say must specify one and only one, blah 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 blah. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's also called decompression methods, so that was
yeah
also
an unfortunate naming artifact, but
I think that slight smell is less bad than the smell of having compression method and decompression method that have the same names of members.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also literally just gave an example of where a compression method is going to be obsolete in the future, and where you're going to want to use a flags-based enum anyway.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, but like, it's already an enum that says Brotli, deflate, gzip, and Z standard. Yeah, it also says all and none, but
yeah.
Actually, there's no reason to not accept none here. It's perfectly legal.
That's an interesting point. Should have just called it compression methods to begin with.
We should have, yeah, but Maybe
That's
in the
fine.
future.
It is a little weird though to fast decompression methods.
What
to
era was
It is.
that?
compression API.
.NET Framework 2.0. All right, before my time. I was working in Windows at the time.
One thing I'll add, just from experiencing quite a few API reviews around the response compression middleware, is people do eventually ask for the options beyond compression level. Like we used to expose just the enum and the compression level, but now, especially that we have like the log window size and stuff on the gzip and the z or the zlib and the brotli and the what's the other one?
Z standard.
Z standard.
Z standard. That's the one we just got an issue for, to expose those options for
Yes.
response
Yeah.
compression.
But the thing with the options that they have is that they are all different. They don't have a common parent or anything. So it complicates things quite a lot. Like you can pass the compression method as broadly, and then Z standard options, like what is like there will be, I don't know.
Do we have a
just
plan
because of that.
if we do need it? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I get that it's complicated. Like I agree. Like they're different options.
I
But
mean,
doesn't that provide a good argument for not having a compressed content class, but instead having like a Brotli content class, a deflate
Right.
content class, a Z standard content class?
That's what I'm getting
And-
at. That's like
yeah.
the providers that we have for response compression. They each have their own options, and then you register the providers that you want.
Right. Manya has hand up.
Yeah, like you can already compress the content manually. You can use like streaming content or whatever, and use the whatever compression with whatever options you want. If you want to specify these like nitty-gritty details and just add the header yourself manually to the content, that's not a problem. This is mostly just a convenience to make it easier for people, so they don't have to it's like single line instead of 4 lines or whatever.
Why would there be 4 lines?
With the options and
Without this
everything.
API, to set the content
Yeah.
type header, I presume.
No. I guess what I'm saying is if you have a, say, Brotli compressed content class, in theory, in order to use it, you say new Brotli compressed content of my underlying HTTP content, close paren, semicolon, done, and it'll just use the default options. That's the equivalent number. That's actually fewer keystrokes than new compressed content, open parens, my underlying content, comma, decompression methods dot Brotli, close paren, semicolon.
That's way wider new API surface.
Yes, but
basically.
you would need the new API
yeah,
surface anyway to provide options.
This is just a simple syntax sugar for people that need to use it in the easiest, most possible way. We are not trying to solve every single problem with this.
Well, it just might be easier or simpler to have like 4 new content types.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but in the future we might add more compression algorithms, and then it also starts complicating things with the new whole class instead
Well,
of
with
one
their own
value.
options. So like, yeah, having a single method also complicates things if you have more. Like I'm just thinking about response compression, right? Like we have options for each compression type.
Right.
Yes.
Of course,
I
you can always like even in ASP.NET Core, right? Like no one's stopping you from doing like response.body, write the compressed content, right? But nonetheless, like we have per compression options that does it all automatically for you.
yeah, like
And then, yeah, we don't need to come back to API review in the future unless there's a new method. But then, you know, we have a straightforward pattern and we just pass through the options. That
exactly,
compression
and that would go
takes.
with the 400 other types we're adding with the. That would go with the 400 other types we add per compression algorithm. That snort is. I made a comment as we moved to this issue that the previous ones we deleted 90% of the API surface, and I didn't think we were going to do that here. And someone just said, "Looks like we're about to increase it by 90%." So.
Well, but for the feature team though, right? Like, you know, Manya or is there what's the pushback against having like a dedicated type for each of these? Because as far as usability goes, it seems equally usable and more powerful for those who need it.
Yeah, unless we have a layering problem. But I doubt it, otherwise we wouldn't be able to use these algorithms anyway.
It's like I personally don't like the multiple classes, like the size of the API, and it feels to me like if you really want to do this, you can just construct the content manually with stream content and setting up the header, and you don't need these APIs at all, and we can just close the issue and be done with it and say like we're not doing it.
But
I honestly think this does 90% of the hard part while giving you more control.
Because your HTTP content might not be a string content, right? It might be something that's read, you know, on the fly from a
JSON
resource.
content and stuff like that.
Like if we tell people that you need to materialize it as something first, or that you're responsible for wrapping it yourself, like that's a lot of work for people to do.
Yeah, like this is more surface, but it's actually, so this is going to be better for trimming because the type system tells you which algorithms you want. This is going to be easier for testing because you don't need to test all the invalid values. This gets away with adding, with the debate of do we add a new enum or do we use the existing enum. Like, in a small way it's worse, but in I think almost every other way it's better. Also, these aren't partial to new types.
It also means you don't need to like worry about what does compression level mean for any given compression method.
And
yeah, I
all of
like
those have options.
removing the layering.
Sorry, go ahead, Manya.
Sorry.
Do all of those have their own options?
I assume so at this point.
I think so.
Should.
I believe so.
And then, of course, we could also decide that between specify all the options and just get the default. We could add the compression level overload if we wanted, but you could also leave it until.
But that's 5 or 6 characters out to say like new open curly compression level equals whatever.
Yep. What did I miss? Jeez.
And we don't.
I mean, if the options types don't exist, then obviously we would not have their constructors, but. And options could be called compression options or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't want to be overly dismissive here though, right? Because it sounds like a really big reason for having compressed content was usability first and foremost, right? And I do wonder if like was there a reason other than usability that that you all were promoting the compressed content class kind of as the one ring to rule them all?
Not really.
So then it comes down to like have these proposals with these 4 extra types instead of having a compressed content, does that decrease usability compared with what the original proposal was?
No.
And I think we should have that discussion.
No, I don't think it decreases usability.
For gzip, it looks like the only option is it's called zlib compression options.
Yeah, if we think that it has approximately the same usability and discoverability, and it makes it easier to do more advanced scenarios as well, and I think we all agree it makes it easier to do more advanced scenarios like wrapping JSON and being able to, you know, give meaningful values to things. That seems worthwhile.
The only thing I can think of is that basically if you just want to, like, you do not care about the options, you do not care about the compression itself, the algorithm, you just get the value for that from somewhere, you change it to the enum, and you don't care whether it's like deflate or Z standard or broadly, because you're just passing it around.
I
In
mean,
that
But you
case,
need to
you have
care.
to. Do you?
You absolutely need to care, because if the server doesn't understand it, well, sucks to be you.
Well, if you know the server that it supports whatever it comes to your server slash
then you
client
would
in
know
the
which
scenario.
then you would know which algorithm they support. You would have picked one. I mean, we can add the original proposed one as well, except then we have to solve the enum problem.
I thought that the way that most web browsers worked is they actually send the initial request with, they send it with something like deflate that they just assume everyone supports, and then they say accept encoding everything, and then they wait to see what the web server advertises, and then future requests have a, they're like, oh yeah, I saw that your response gave me broadly, therefore future requests will give it as well. Isn't that how web servers work in practice?
No, I
Or
don't
how
think
web
so,
browsers work in
because
practice?
HTTP is stateless. So there
It
again,
is.
like there's no like query the server for
Right.
what request compression
Well,
you support.
Which is why I thought that in practice,
You could send an
browsers.
options?
Well, that's why I thought that in practice, browsers sent the initial request with something kind of standard like deflate, and then waited to see what the response had.
I don't think the options request like would tell you what the server accepts.
No, this
I think
isn't
it requires
options.
prior knowledge.
Yeah, this is literally like you make the initial request to like / a normal GET request, using something not that good, and then it's like, oh, so the server said as part of its response, I support deflate broadly, whatever. So now that I'm going and fetching all of the assets, CSS, JavaScript, whatever, I know that I need to.
But you're
that I
still
can
talking
say-
about gets.
Well, those are still gets.
This
then,
is
yeah.
this is for put, post,
This is for posting.
and patch. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
I guess
there
the
is
XHR
like
would know.
accept headers on requests for the response, but I don't think there's the inverse. Of course, you can look for 415s or whatever and just try
Right.
things.
Yep.
But at that point, you've already done a lot of work.
Yeah. Like it actually took a while for ASP.NET Core to add like request decompression. I feel like most browsers just don't attempt it. But maybe they do.
Time to get Wireshark up and running again.
I know, right? Or ask your favorite eye.
But anyway, yeah, that was all to kind of say, like, if it seems like a weird claim to say I don't really care what algorithm is used for the outbound, because you need some kind of handshake with the server, or at least some kind of pre-existing contract to know that the server understands it. Otherwise, you might choose a thing that the server doesn't support.
All right, looking it up again, browsers just don't do it. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like the only big things they're likely to upload are files, which are probably going to be compressed to some extent anyway.
Sure.
And then, why deal with all the compatibility risks? So I think the browsers just don't do it.
Okay. Never mind then.
Yep.
So that probably means that having some type of I don't care what algorithm you use on the outbound is not really a legitimate scenario here, at least not at the moment. Okay. So yeah, that's an argument then for having the 4 unique classes, the 4 distinct classes. Okay.
playing devil's advocate, I will now ask, is it going to be at all confusing for the, because I think the same content type is used on requests and responses. Would it be confusing that we have any of these compressed content, HTTP content types, that you can use in a request, but you'll never see in a response because the decompression layer would have stripped them off for you?
But there's an API that literally says decompress things on my behalf automatically. If you set that API, then I would imagine that you would never be exposed to these types.
Right, but if you set it to no, I think we're still just going to call the response bytes content and not Z standard compressed content, even if a compression encoding Z standard was applied, because otherwise that would break people who are already getting the bytes content. So I'm just asking, do we think anyone will be confused? And if we think that the answer is not enough people will be confused enough, then great. But that is the concern of the same type was used for input and output, and now you have a it won't round trip, basically. I personally don't think it's too confusing, but it is a question I thought to ask.
The way that these types are structured right now and the way that the compressed content type was structured is very much devoted to compressing data, not decompressing data. It would be confusing to me if these types were used to represent compressed data, because doesn't it mean that you would need to expose the inner HTTP content somehow? And that you would somehow be able to, you would need to be able to specify decompression options and not just compression options.
You're saying would it be confusing based on the shape they have? I'm asking, would it be confusing based on the name they have?
There was some static in the background too. I don't know who was talking. I'm sorry.
I think Mono was trying to talk.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That was me.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I asked the question, but then it became unraveled. I didn't get the point, but sorry. I was asking, what did you mean by passing decompression options as well?
So for example, let's say that I have HTTP client and I'm making a request to a server and the server sends back, hey, here's a Z standard response. Can the HTTP client consumer somehow say, here are the ways that I want to constrain the response? To say, here are the particular decompression options I want to pass in.
Maybe Maya knows better, but that's
I'm confused. Why would you put decompression options to request?
Because you want to limit the amount of work the server's doing, for instance.
You don't want to be the responses coming from.
Are we talking about request or a response right now?
But I don't want the server to zip on me effectively.
But you're.
Oh, you mean like if we set like automatic decompression to some options, that we do not have decompression options for automatic decompression on handler. That's what you're asking?
Correct. Like I want to allow automatic decompression, but only with, say, a set window, as an example.
Oh, I think that Radek was actually looking into that for. Okay. He was trying to introduce a new API for that on Sockets HTTP handler, but then he realized that the RFC specifies that we will always allocate at most like 8 bytes per request, so there's no point in having this as a public API because it would be like super hard to DOS us with this. So from what we were looking into, it is by standard limited and there are no like security implications. at the moment. No, okay.
Yeah, it's not related to this feature, Levi. You can take it offline.
Yeah. Okay.
It is tangentially related, but it doesn't affect what's on screen.
It doesn't affect compression, it affects decompression. And then the reason I brought it up is because, Jeremy, you had asked, should there be a symmetry between the two?
No.
So
I'm
it
just
seemed relevant.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
whether we go with the original proposal or we go with these proposals. If on the request, if someone is using HTTP client and they have not turned on automatic decompression,
Mhm.
They get back the HTTP response message. Do we think anyone will be confused that they never get one of these back as the response message.content? Like, if the server response type is octet stream / broccoli, or whatever the correct MIME type is, the fact that we won't wrap it in this, is that going to confuse anyone? I'm fine with no as the answer. I just have to ask the question.
I think you're okay saying it's not going to be wrapped in this because that's been the behavior since time immemorial anyway.
Right. I guess I don't know if the HTTP content on the response is always just the bytes content or if it's ever an interpreted content.
There's strings sometimes, I think. Maybe?
I know you can call get response and interpret it as a string and give me back the string. I just don't know if you actually get back a string content.
Okay.
Or if you just get back a content and don't ask questions. Yeah, so as long as we don't think it's confusing to add new HTTP content types that are input only types, then I guess if we thought it would be confusing, I think then we should say no to the whole thing. And if we don't think it's confusing, then I think we should go with the breakout types.
I like the
Agreed.
breakout types too. Maybe we could make it a little simpler. I was like looking at what we do on the server side for compression and decompression. And on the server, for response compression, we only support gzip, not deflate. Mostly because like deflate is a little ambiguous, I guess, in how exactly you're supposed to encode it, like whether it requires like zlib packaging or not. And most things support gzip these days. ASP.NET Core supports it for decompression for like maximum compatibility, but for compression, it just does gzip. I'm not sure if we want to follow that here. Deflate's like the older one, but like modern servers should support gzip if they support anything.
And also, I thought we were going with the decompression options. Sorry, decompression methods enum that is already.
We're getting rid of the enum if we do the separate content types, which is one of the benefits of the separate content types.
All right, and you were saying something about simplifying, Stefan?
Just getting rid of the deflate compression.
Oh, okay. Not
context.
because someone in chat was suggesting factories for central dispatch, and I thought that's maybe what you were suggesting here too.
Yeah,
I don't like the
factories. So like the earlier
like
points, you can always, even today, write your own code to do deflate compressed request. But I think for the helper methods, encouraging people to use gzip instead of deflate is probably just goodness. It's just how we do it on the response side.
All right. Does anyone want to strongly object to doing breakout? I won't say the number. To doing breakout classes instead of a central class with an enum? Okay. Now there is a motion to not expose deflate compressed content, suggesting that no one who's using compressed requests should be using the deflate algorithm, and therefore we can simplify our testing model by taking an algorithm out. Does anyone object to that?
Should we then keep only the gzip compressed content? we can always set more in the future.
I like Z standard and Broadly. They're arguably better. This would match what we have on the response compression side, so that makes me feel warm and fuzzy. But yeah.
All right. Are we happy with the shape? Can I get a positive grunt of assent?
Sorry, I was using my thumbs up. I'm happy with it.
Fair enough. All right. Final calls. Going once. Going twice. Sold. That might be 90% bigger. All right. Thank you. Dobry večer. I don't know how to say thank you. I can just say good evening. All right.
Thank you.
We have cleared the set agenda. We have 18 minutes to go.
The config references one is marked as, I thought we approved that one.
Fine. I will hit F5.
Yeah, and there's still
Okay.
the start of the unsafe ones if we can get to them.
Yeah, if you think 18 minutes is enough time to start, we can.
Yeah, I think it's enough time to get through at least the concepts and get everyone up to speed on some of it, and then we can probably approve the one, the mark unsafe as caller unsafe, because those ones are obvious.
You say that.
They're
Levi and I
fast
were.
called unsafe. How hard could they be?
Well, the part. Oh, weird. I thought it had a saying subtract wasn't, but I don't see that anymore. So
Yeah, Jeremy and I were having some fun with Void Star yesterday. Anyway, let's do it.
all right.
Yeah. So, the basic premise is that C# language is working on a feature. Some people call it unsafe v2, some people call it unsafe evolution. But the general premise of it is that you are now able to differentiate outer unsafety from inner unsafety. Outer unsafety allows you to propagate up to a caller that you cannot use the method without calling it from within an unsafe context. And inner unsafety is what many people are familiar with from the past 20 years, which is you declare an unsafe context so that you can use unsafe things. There's an entire spec that goes into some of that nuance, like pointers existing become safe, but dereferencing a pointer remains unsafe, and it gets into some of the nuance over memory safety, what we declare as memory safe versus unsafe, and various things like that. Once you've opted into the feature, you declare outer unsafety by putting unsafe on the method or member signature. So this also applies to things like fields. And outer unsafety does not declare an inner unsafety context, so you have to declare those separately. So if you put unsafe on the method body, you still have to put unsafe in the method body to use unsafe within the method itself. But as far as API review is concerned, it's the additional outer unsafety annotations we're adding because that impacts how external users will start seeing these APIs when they opt into the feature. within the system runtime compiler services unsafe class, we have a number of APIs that deal with pointers, and most of those remain unsafe because they end up dereferencing that pointer, and so therefore it needs to be unsafe because it is on the user or the caller to ensure the pointer is valid. We have other APIs on here which do not involve pointers, in which we need to start annotating as unsafe to propagate that unsafety up to the user and their responsibility. And so for this proposal and all the other proposals, we effectively have not marked any of the pointer taking signatures unless they are becoming safe for some reason. I don't think we actually have any of them in the proposals right now. We have explicitly marked all the APIs that should become unsafe starting in with the feature enabled. And then we've also called out some of the other related APIs, and we do not have the diff marker on them for where there is no change to them, but they're still worth talking about because, for example, it's on a class called unsafe, but it's not unsafe to call, and there's reasoning for that. So the first set of APIs here are add, byte, offset, and add. The reason why these are unsafe is called out in the safety comment attached to it. So in particular, birefs are required to be valid. Anything that could produce an invalid biref is by definition unsafe, and so it is on the caller of that API to ensure that it is in fact valid with the arithmetic performed. So in this case, ref t source is presumed valid going into the call, and the user has the responsibility of ensuring that source plus byte offset, which forms a new address, must be valid for the biref because something could dereference that bireference. So that is why these APIs are marked unsafe. Are there any questions up until that point?
Sounded sane to me.
Our same is then not required to be unsafe because it is not actually doing any arithmetic with the bireferences. It's just taking two birefs and it is ensuring that the two birefs are the same reference. Because it's not doing any arithmetic, the user already had the responsibility of ensuring the inputs were presumed valid because that's just the requirement. And so it is a completely safe API. So despite being on the class called unsafe, it is in fact safe. And so it's not changed or annotated.
Is that new API too?
No, none of these are new APIs. They're all existing APIs, and we are adding the unsafe annotation on them.
Yeah, for what's worth, I'm changing the shape of the doodle so we understand what we're approving. Since C# allows the words in any order.
Yeah.
Violates our style guidelines, but it makes my brain feel nicer.
Fair enough. But that's going to be the general theme within a lot of these APIs is you have things that do things like produce new birefs, and so the user has a responsibility to ensure that the inputs are correct and form a valid output, versus the user has no expectation, and so it is implicitly memory safe. For asref and and we have called out in the safety comments for all of them, so I won't go through it verbatim, but I will give a summary. Asref reinterprets from a read-only to a writable reference, which means you could violate memory safety semantics and end up writing to something that should have been truly immutable, and that could AV. As, which takes an object and returns a T, does not do a type check. So it allows you to access things like padding data if you try to cast to some completely unrelated type, like you try and reinterpret a string as an exception. this API technically allows you to do that, but it is considered unsafe because it can give you access to fields that are themselves having invariants. Those are called unsafe fields. And you could violate them. It can give you access to padding data, and it can even break in other invariants of the runtime, such as a presumption that a type is actually the runtime track type. As, which takes a byref and reinterprets it as a different byref, is very similar. It allows you to effectively do type punning and access unsafe fields, padding data, or even access a type as the type that it isn't. And bitcast as well. Even though it validates the size and other things, it still gives you potential access to all of that data in those fields that you shouldn't have access to.
Right, so violating encapsulation.
Yep. Byte offset is safe because it is not actually producing a byref. It is just giving you the delta between the two addresses. You can't actually do anything unsafe with that unless you cast it to a pointer and then try to indirect it or use another unsafe API.
I was actually going to ask about that. There is an as point, not shown on the screen here, but there is unsafe.as pointer. Is that an unsafe API?
No, because the reason that as pointer is not unsafe is because pointers existing is the same as any data existing. Data existing is not itself unsafe. What is potentially unsafe is if you try to indirect that data. So you actually dereference the pointer to access the underlying memory. The language requires that indirecting or dereferencing remain unsafe. And so as pointer is safe because it's just giving you back a pointer. The user still has to declare unsafe to do anything potentially unsafe with it.
No, that sounds fine. The reason I ask is because byte offset can be used to implement as pointer, and I just wanted to make sure that we were consistent in our treatment of the two.
Yes.
And then just projecting this a different way, it's all the pointer types now are equivalent to int pitter / inint in that you can talk about it. It's just doing something with it is what gets marked now. Whereas the previous language treatment of the word unsafe regarding pointers was you can't even admit the type exists.
Yeah.
And
ideally that also encourages users to not use the wrong type for a given scenario.
Yeah. Does any of this change the IL that is written for a method that takes a pointer type as a parameter?
No.
The C# unsafe method decal keyword did not manifest in an IL method decal bit.
It will be annotated with an attribute that only the compiler can write.
So I just mean did the previous method decal keyword have an impact in IL? Like, so the in-market compilers, if you say public unsafe foo versus public foo, does the IL actually know? I could probably just check this.
There's an attribute on the method that the compiler can inspect, but it is not a signature changing piece of metadata.
Right, I'm asking for unsafe v1.
Oh, in unsafe v1, there's no way to discern.
No, but is the keyword being in the method decal versus in the method body, does that show up in the IL at all? Okay.
No.
Okay. So the language changing what it means when it's in the method decal only affects C# compilations. It doesn't affect IL consumers.
Correct.
Okay.
Copy block is unsafe because it will read byte count additional bytes beyond the zeroth entry that the destination and source point to. Same with copy block unaligned. Copy block in particular also has the expectation that the data is properly aligned, which is why you have the two differences there. IL expects that a given BIREF is appropriately aligned. And if it isn't, then you need to use the unaligned prefix, which is what copy block unaligned does. And then same again for an init block and init block unaligned. The various is checks are simply comparing addresses. They don't compute new addresses. Same with is null ref. Null ref itself is an interesting one because it produces a null BIREF. And that is not unsafe because you can trivially create that with safe code, such as default span. Or if you just declare a ref struct with a BIREF field, then default is a null BIREF. And so a null BIREF is legal and will always produce a null reference exception, which is not unsafe because it's deterministic, unlike an arbitrary BIREF, which could randomly corrupt data, produce an AV or something else. Read unaligned is unsafe because it reads size of T bytes from the given source. Skip init is unsafe because it can give access to uninitialized data and allow you to observe that uninitialized memory. Subtract byte offset and subtract are similar to add. They produce new BIREFs, and so it's on the user to ensure that the byte offset is valid. Unbox is unsafe because it gives you a the IL instruction returns a controlled mutability reference, and it is not safe to mutate if the T were to a read-only struct. So for example, a boxed int, you can unbox, and it is not considered legal to the memory model to mutate that. Whereas some mutable struct, it would be legal to mutate, and it's up to the user to ensure that the T is in fact a mutable type before they do anything. And then write unaligned is same as read unaligned. It reads size of T, or writes size of T bytes beyond the byte destination.
So I notice, and I think these were the minuses that I saw that maybe got deleted, that subtract of a void star and a number, which returns a void star, is not being called unsafe. So
correct, because it is just arithmetic. It does not actually access the memory. It's no different than adding two integers. The unsafety is required as soon as the user tries to cast it to a T star and then actually dereference the memory. And the language forces unsafe to be used there.
I have a quick question. So presumably we're going to remove unsafe keyword from those. Like, do we need to list those here for the API review? Like, we are removing unsafe from these methods. Like, I would imagine it doesn't make sense because that's why I removed it in the first place.
yeah, like it's tricky because so I did run a compilation just to find out what the current v1 does, and these are going to be hard to read. So static unsafe void foo, as Tanner said, nothing in the IL, that keyword does not appear anywhere here. There are no bits set, there are no, like, it's just a function that returns a void star. The C# language requires that there was an unsafe. The IL does not. Technically, our ref CSs are written in C#, and we say modifying them requires API review. But I think really the thing that we're guarding in API review is the IL. And so with unsafe v2 evolution, the new unsafe, now these words unsafe change the IL removing the ones from the file don't. So I think they're interesting to maybe talk about, like we're doing right now, but I don't think that if they're being removed just from a bulk, pointer types no longer need them, I don't think we care.
I think the nuance there is probably that the vast majority of APIs that take pointers will not change. They'll keep the unsafe keyword on them because the method fundamentally dereferences the pointer. So the few like unsafe add that takes a void star, not keeping the unsafe keyword is potentially interesting.
Right. So is the language currently going to allow, and I don't even remember if it does allow it, if you have an int star and you plus that, is that going to require being in an unsafe block?
No, because that does not dereference. That's the same as x plus equals 4, for example,
Right.
from a byte perspective.
But but any typed pointer adding, because that adds bytes, I think.
Yeah. So if you do void star plus just isn't valid as far as I remember.
Right.
You have to explicitly specify the amount. For a T star, a plus is effectively doing address plus equals size of T times the amount you're adding. So int star plus is size of int times 1. Int star plus 2 is the same as int times 2.
Okay, and the adds here that didn't get the decorator are add of T. You have to tell it the element type, and so it just does the size of T times element offset for you. Okay, the thing I was concerned with, and I think that Levi and I were discussing at the end of the day yesterday, is if you had a void star and you start mucking with the bottom bits, you can take it from a data aligned pointer to a non-aligned pointer, and that felt unsafe. But in this, you could tell it add of byte, and maybe you're lying, but the fact that you had to write the byte in here means you did the cast yourself. And assuming that casting a void star to a byte star and then adding 1 and then casting it back to a void star is not unsafe, then this isn't unsafe.
Right. So it's only the active dereferencing, and at the point that the user dereferences, they take on the responsibility of ensuring that the data was properly aligned, that it was accessible, etc.
Yeah, and if the thing is, like, at that point, they might not be able to know that, especially because they don't know all the different methods that the pointer flowed through on the way there. But we also say, look, if there's a bug in the code, there's a bug in the code, right? You can't guard against every single bug that might be possible.
Right.
So there is a risk here. It might be a risk that you simply have to accept rather than mitigate, but there's a risk.
Yeah, and in particular, this whole model is centered around it is not dealing with things like logic bugs. It is dealing with memory unsafety. Mm-hmm. And you can have logic bugs in fully safe code, and there's no getting around it.
Right.
And so we differentiate. Doing something with a pointer is potentially risky. It's potentially even just bad practice or error prone. But until you try to dereference it, you're not actually doing anything unsafe.
Yeah, it's an interesting separation, because what you're saying is not necessarily here's where the bug is, it's here's where the bug is going to manifest as memory unsafety.
Yeah.
And potentially we can cover other types of logic bugs with analyzers, and maybe someday we'll have a different keyword or doc word that we want to use to describe those types of things. But with how the language is going here, unsafe explicitly means memory unsafe.
Yeah.
Right.
And I believe these two lines are equivalent.
Yes, they look to be.
And so
Yeah.
if the new language rules say this does not require being in an unsafe block, then we should not require this to be in an unsafe block either.
I did have a comment on the unbox one, by the way.
Mhm.
We do have some fairly extensive remarks on MSDN regarding why unbox is unsafe, and they're different than the remarks that you had put as your comment. I just wanted to make sure that we reconciled those at some point. Because unsafe unbox actually does do a type check. It's an implementation detail, but it does in fact do a type check.
Yeah, and I think the comments here are trying to document the guarantees versus the implementation behavior.
The reason that unsafe.unbox is unsafe is because it's equivalent to asref. It turns an immutable reference into a mutable reference.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault actually.
Okay.
I had a correct comment there, but then it was updated by AI to include this type. I don't know why it thinks that unbox is not, like, does not perform a type check, because it does, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't think we documented that though.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it definitely does. But like the criteria here is that it can strip the read-onliness. So we have that as explicit criteria in the linked issue.
It's documented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the specific keyword is like controlled mutability or limited mutability pointer.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember I wrote the remarks for that and I'm like, oh God, I have to like trawl through all of the ECMA spec in order to figure out what sections to reference.
But yes, the type check is described in the invalid cast exception.
Yeah. Okay, so my only comment was let's just make sure that we reconcile the wording there.
Yeah, I'll update the wording.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that only took 100% overrun.
No, I'm excited to see this come together.
Yeah. I think not related to approving this particular one, but one of the other things to note is that extern methods are unsafe. They have to be annotated as unsafe or explicitly as safe. So if you have a DLL import or library import, that's leaving the managed control, the control of the runtime. And so those are unsafe unless you annotate otherwise, and you probably shouldn't annotate them otherwise. They won't come up in our own proposals here because we don't really expose such methods, but it is going to be important for other users consuming it. That's one of the other big things. And I suggest anyone interested in this go read the proposal and go over it in depth to see all the little nuances.
So Tanner and Igor, there's been a question of, is something like inint.toInt32 considered safe or unsafe right now?
It's safe. It's just a cast of an integer to a different integer. It's no different than long to int.
Okay, so again, that goes with the void star, or all stars become void star is intpitter is inint, and inint is math.
Yeah,
Okay.
Despite
And
the
there's no
name
cry.
and despite the name and people's confusions, int ptr is not a pointer type. The name actually comes from C, and it is the same as 32. So int32 is called int32 because it has 32 bits. And int64 is called that because it has 64 bits. Int ptr is called that because it has ptr bits. The same number of bits as a pointer. It's a terrible name, but that's the name that was chosen 25 years ago. And it is not itself a pointer.
I am totally willing to hate on the intpitter class with you.
Yeah, I'm just like that we had already the V1 version was this can opaquely represent a pointer, thou shalt never do math with it, because that you're cheating the unsafe keyword if you're doing math with it. And then math slowly started creeping in, and then we have the like Marshall.go read this value from an int pitter and a relative offset, and
All those are going to become unsafe when we get to that proposal.
sure. But it's the once we started letting the numbery stuff come in with the inint unification, what we're saying is that all of the stuff that's just numbers. So as long as you don't call a read or a write on the value, you didn't do an unsafe thing. So fair enough. And I believe the plan is fixed is no longer unsafe.
I don't remember the exact context on fixed.
Okay.
I know that there's a call out in the proposal, but we fixed is one of the things we discussed back and forth a few times. Same with unsafe expressions and things like unsafe across await boundaries and things like that. And so all of those have gotten discussed, and there's some notes on them in the proposal on exactly how those get handled.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with the current model, it's safe. Just like taking address of a local.
Yeah.
Right. But then so you do a fixed to get I'll just say byte star. You pass the byte star to a helper method that took a byte star, which then passes it to a library import, which is now declared unsafe. So somewhere in there you had to slap the word unsafe, unless you slap the word safe because you just want the error to go away. Okay.
Yeah. Unless you're lying about the unsafety, then you can't, at least from the context of C# itself, do an unsafe operation without going through it. Or, the same nits as nullable reference types. If every dependency you're using isn't participating in the ecosystem. And there's some rules to help prevent bugs and make sure that consistent behavior surfaces from a dependency that isn't opted in, maintaining the the V1 status quo.
Okay. Boop. All right. So yes, for reviewer sanity, because big blocks of plus are hard to read, I've broken it out so it is clear that all we are doing is adding unsafe into these existing method decals. And I glanced through the type, and it looks like we covered all except one of the overloads of subtract and one of the overloads of add, which we then did discuss. So. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about on this one before adjourning?
Just for a heads
This
up,
is awesome.
I think we have around, my estimate, we have around 400 of different APIs that we need to annotate with unsafe. So we only walked like, I don't know, 30 of them.
Yeah.
That's quite a few.
I assume, like other things we did, this one got hand holding, and some other things are going to get bulk classification. Like all the stuff on Marshall, all the writes are like, yep, they took a pointer and they did a write. We're done. So,
right. Yep. Yeah, there will be around 200 of them are really trivial. They will not take a lot of time. Yep. So yeah, the scope is definitely a lot smaller than nullability attributes.
Yeah. Or the bang bang PR.
And being able to get through the initial like rundown of here's the basics of how the feature works should speed up the next 3 or 4 proposals we have.
Did I submit? I did not. Submit. Approved. Okay. Well, just, you know, as the heads up for the feature area, you do have a blocking thing ahead of you now, so you'll be number 2 unless something else moves to blocking. Are you also blocking? Is this supposed to be in?
I think we
Yeah.
definitely
whatever.
want to see that in .NET 11 as an opt-in mode. So like we definitely need those API to be annotated.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you don't have a must be reviewed by preview 7.
Yeah, as long as
Definitely.
just included in .NET 11.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So anyway, you'll be presumably second. But again, blocking means jump the queue, so you could be lower than that. Just wanted to share. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. Good questions, good feedback, and thank you, Frederick, for fielding answers while we were discussing things. I would tell Tanner chat was very appreciative of the way that he laid things out. I'll relay it to him offline since he just dropped. And yeah, we'll see you next month. Next week, which is also next month, and the second half of the year at our same .NET time on our same .NET channel. Until then, Spanish. I'm just going to go with ciao because they borrowed it from Italian. Ciao.